So this class we will see mostly on the gear train, which is epicyclic gear train. So epicyclic gear train is different from ordinary gear train. If you look at the ordinary gear train, you will have two gears are engaged. You think of these two figures. You can say this one is the ordinary gear train, where you have the two gears are engagement. Each gear is rotating about a center, and this center is fixed to the ground. Or you can think of something which is connecting the two centers, and that is also fixed. Whereas in an epicyclic gear train, this connected thing is not fixed. So here we can give the names for this. This one is called a sun. This gear which goes around is called a planet. So this is called a sun gear. This is called planet gear. The one which connects this and carries the planet gear around, this is called arm. So in case of an ordinary gear train, the output motion is entirely decided by the input motion. Suppose I give some input here by way of theta 1, the theta 2 is decided solely by theta 1. So for that I can say the degrees of freedom is 1. Whereas if you think of epicyclic gear, the output motion of the planet theta p is decided by the input motion of the sun as well as the input motion of the arm. So the output motion is taken from the planet gear. Then the motion is not only decided by the input motion that is given to the sun, it's also decided by the motion of the arm. So if you write all this thing in terms of angular velocities, then omega s, this can be omega arm A, then this is omega p. So omega p is decided not only by omega s, it's also decided by omega a. So this system has 2 degrees of freedom. The output motion is decided by 2 input motions, 2 motions, whereas this ordinary gear, where it is a special case of an epicyclic gear where the arm is fixed. So the theta a or omega a is 0, then it is an ordinary gear, the gear train which has 1 degree of freedom, but whereas this has 2 degrees of freedom. Now again, I will demonstrate the epicyclic gear motion. Yesterday I did it, but let me do it today. If I take a disc like this, and you can see the arrow, this indicates the position. I can say that this has rotated once. If it undergoes a motion, again the arrow is looking downwards. Then this has undergone 1 rotation. If I consider these 2, they are of equal diameters. If I fix both of them about its center and made it to rotate, they will undergo 1:1 ratio. This will undergo only 1 rotation. If I give 1 rotation to the input, other output also will undergo 1 rotation. Whereas in the case you allow this to rotate around the gear also, sun gear, like this, so I can ask him to help. So you can see that the sun gear position is immaterial, it is now looking downwards. This is your planet gear. Now this is the adjustment. Let me rotate. You see that rotation is taking place without a slip. So as I told you, to avoid the slip, I have used a Velcro adjustment. You would have seen that Velcro in many places. Okay. Now you see that this vertical motion, the arrow is vertically up. That means it has already completed 1 rotation. Now again, let me rotate it. You can take the. If I rotate it now, now you see that this is again. So when it comes to this position, it has already completed 2 rotations. So this motion is your epicyclic gear motion. Thank you. So this, as I told you, you can do it with coins. Now how do you explain it? Why you get 2 rotations? Can we get 3 rotations or 5 rotations? Even though the 2 gears are in engagement, is a ratio of 1:1. I get a speed ratio of 1:2 now. It can be 1:5 or 1:10, provided that I rotate the sun gear also. Sun gear is now it is fixed, but if I allow that also to rotate, what will happen? You will get different gear ratios. So that is one advantage of epicyclic gears, that even though you physically engage same set of gears, the gear ratio can be changed by giving different inputs to either arm or sun. Okay? So how to prove that it will rotate twice? How to do that? So we can write for that the velocity difference equation. The velocity difference equation here, it is written in terms of the angular velocity. The angular velocity of a gear is given by angular velocity of the arm plus angular velocity of that gear with respect to the arm. Okay, so this is velocity difference equation or relative velocity equation we used to write, but that we have written so far for the linear velocities, that is applicable for angular velocities also. So here this equation I will use it for the velocity, angular velocity of the sun gear is given by angular velocity of the arm plus angular velocity of the sun gear with respect to the arm. I can write another equation. Angular velocity of the planet gear is angular velocity of the arm plus angular velocity of the planet with respect to the arm. So this equation can be written as angular velocity of the sun with respect to the arm is equal to angular velocity of the sun minus angular velocity of the arm. Then I can write the second equation like angular velocity of the planet with respect to the arm is equal to angular velocity of the planet minus angular velocity of the arm. Now the angular velocity of the sun with respect to the arm, planet with respect to the arm means it is all with respect to the arm, that is the velocity of the gears with respect to the arm. If we take the ratio, then that is decided by the diameter of the gears or the number of tooths in the gears. Because with respect to the arm you look at it, that is similar to this. So with respect to the arm, if you write this, so angular velocity of the planet with respect to the arm divided by angular velocity of the sun with respect to the arm, that ratio is the gear ratio divided by given by the diameters or number of tooth. In our case, that is 1. Because this is decided by the diameter ratios. The diameter in our case, this we have engaged the same diameter, this is equal to 1. So that is also equal to omega s minus I will say this omega p with respect to A is this, omega s with respect to A is this. So omega p minus omega A divided by omega s minus omega A. Now omega p is what we want to estimate, what is the velocity or angular velocity of the omega p, the planet gear, that is what we want to estimate. So we will say that omega p minus omega arm, the connecting arm had completed one rotation. Okay, so let me take that as 1 revolutions per minute for this example, minus omega of the sun. Sun is the central gear, it was held, it was not rotating, so it will have a 0 angular velocity, minus then omega A is 1. Okay, so what we have is omega p minus 1 is equal to, we have here minus, here this is a 2 gears, we have a minus sign. So we will have here minus and minus is cancelled, that is 1. So we can estimate the planet gear will have a angular velocity of 2, or in terms of rotation, if you say the planet gear will have 2 rotations. So this is what we can get by writing the relative velocity equations. So if you can also substitute thetas in terms of omega, because it is just divided by the time. Since you are taking the same time, you can remove that and you will get it. Now we will see how this particular thing is usefully employed for in a gearbox. Okay, for that we will go to the projection. We'll take a look at that. This is a simple gear train. Whatever you have a input gear and output gear, whatever is in between doesn't play any role in deciding the velocity ratio. They are called idlers. So here this is a compound gear. So here we can get higher speed reduction ratio. At least one of the shaft is having more than one gear. This is again another compound gear. This is a reverted type of a compound gear. This is a gearbox. Now this is the epicyclic gear. So here the arm is fixed. The conventional type has 1 degree of freedom, whereas this is a planetary or epicyclic gear set where the arm is not fixed, which has 2 degrees of freedom. So this is how a real epicyclic gear would look like. See, you have the sun gear, planet gear. Suppose I want to take the output from the planet gear. It is difficult because that planet gear is not still, it is rotating like this. When something is moving like this, it is difficult to take an output from that. To facilitate for taking the output from a planet gear, another gear is engaged, that is an internal gear. It is called a ring gear. So you have a ring gear which is engaging with the planet gear through which you can take the output. So you can see the side view of this arm, sun gear and all these things are mounted on a single shaft. You can see that you have a shaft and here this is the arm, this is your sun gear and this is the planet gear, there is a ring gear. So all the inputs and outputs can be taken from concentric shafts. One is going into the other. So that arrangement helps you to give input and take output concentrically. So we have a ring gear added to it. So through the ring gear you can take the output of the planet gear. But you can see the ring gear is mostly an internal gear. So if you take the speed ratio, it will not be, minus will not be there, it will be only plus. So the speed tooth number and plus sign. So this is basically a simple epicyclic gear train. This just have a look at it and don't get into the details. This is various, how many ways the epicyclic gear train can be made. So somebody has suggested these are the ways the epicyclic gear train can be arranged. Now to calculate what will be the output of a gear, what will be the gear ratio, to calculate it, a table is suggested like this. So what we will do for this, we take this as an example and you can see the number of tooths in each. So you have a gear number 2, that is your sun gear, which is having 40 teeth. Then you have a planet gear, that is gear number 3. It is a planet gear. It is having, you have 20 teeth. Then you have a ring gear, that is given as gear number 4. That is your ring gear. It is having 80 teeth. So with this data, we can calculate what is the speed ratio that you can get. For this, you can use a table. Table is one method. There is also another method, write velocity equations what we have written. That velocity difference equation can be straightforwardly you can use it. But this is one easy or simple method of getting it. So here you say you write the gear number. You have 3 columns. So here you see the first one is omega of the gear. That is equal to omega of the arm plus omega of the gear with respect to the arm. And here we write the gear ratios. Now for that particular arrangement, what are the values? It is given that arm is rotating clockwise with 200 revolutions per minute, and the sun gear is rotating clockwise 100 revolutions per minute. These are the input data given. So how these things have come? It is not arbitrary, it is the input data given. You have for this 2 inputs, you have to calculate the output velocities of the gear. So omega the arm is minus 200, that I have filled it in every column, and omega of the second gear, that is the sun gear, is minus 100. Now coming to the gear ratio, you can see between sun and the planet gear, they are 2 external gears. So it is given by the number of tooths in the input gear divided by number of tooths in the output gear. Number of tooths in the input gear is the sun gear, 40, divided by the number of tooths in the output gear, that is planet gear, that is 20. So 40 by 20, and we have minus sign because it is the external gear, the direction is changed. Now between the gear ratio of 3 to 4, 3 is the planet gear and 4 is your internal gear. You can again see this. We are talking about the gear ratio between the planet gear 3 and 4. So the gear ratio will be 20, that is the input gear, 20 divided by the output is 80. 20 by 80, that is the ratio. 20 by 80, you have plus sign here because it is a internal gear. So direction is not changed. That's why you have plus sign. Okay, so these data are known. We just entered from whatever is given in the problem statement. It should not be 20 by 40, it is 40 by 20 because you have to take the number of tooths in the input gear divided by number of tooths in the output gear. It cannot be interchanged like that. Now, how to proceed is that this equation we can fill it up because minus 100 is equal to minus 200, then this must be plus 100. So we can say there it is plus 100. So here we can say this is plus 100. Once this is plus 100, this gear ratio between 2 and 3 is, what is that? Minus 2. So that will be minus 200. So here you will have minus 200 because of this gear ratio. Once you have this minus 200, this is 1 by 4th of that. So you will have minus 50. So you can see that the table is filled like this. So from here it is plus 100. So because if this ratio is given as minus 2, so this will be minus 200. This bit in ratio is decided here as plus 4, 1 by 4. So this is minus 50. So since this is minus 200, here also minus 200, this will be minus 400. Since this is minus 50 and this is minus 200, this will be 250. So if I give an input to the sun gear as minus 100, that is clockwise direction 100, and arm is rotated as 200, I can get the output from the fourth gear, that is the ring gear, as 250. That is, the gear ratio is 2.5. Okay? So like that, the gear ratios are not constant or entirely decided by the tooth ratios, because here you see that that kind of gear ratio is never existed. Either it is -2 or plus 1/4, whereas here it is, what you are getting is 2.5. So it is variable. You can get different gear ratios based on the two inputs that you give. You understand? So this is how we fill and get it. This is basically from the same formula, but we enter and get it. So what is interesting is this. This is an epicyclic gear, but not, you have more than what you call one sun gear. You have here 3 sun gears. So you can see this is an arm, this is your planet gear, and that is in mesh with the 3 sun gears simultaneously. For 2 gears to be in mesh, the tooth size and the gap should be same. So they should have same module. But here they will have same module, but you can see these 3 are having a peculiar gear tooth number of tooths. First is like this one is having 101 tooth, this is having 99 tooth, and this is having 100 tooth. So same, then the pitch diameters will be different, but because of the involute profile they can still engage, but the pressure angle will be slightly different. Okay, this is possible only with the involute gears. Here you have, see that the 3 gears, sun gears are there. One is 101, the other one is 99 tooth, other one is 100 tooth. What happens here, you can calculate, use the table and calculate for this arrangement. So you are giving an input to the arm as counterclockwise 100 RPM. Okay, and the second gear is fixed. Second gear is fixed, that's why it is 0. What is the second gear? That is this particular sun gear with 101 tooth is fixed. When you fix it, you have to find out what you are doing. You are fixing this second gear and you are giving an input to the arm, that is 100 in the anticlockwise. At what speed the 3 and 4 will rotate? Suppose if you forget that it is an epicyclic gear, if you take a simple gear, what will happen? This is planet gear is having 20 tooth. This is approximately 100 tooth, 99 or 100. The gear ratio can be 1:5, isn't it? If you are taking a 20 tooth gear and engaging with the gear of 100 teeth approximately, the gear ratio can be 1:5. Whereas if you do the same thing in an epicyclic gear, let us see what happens. This is the here, this is how a table is filled up. Now you see that the third gear, that is the sun gear, that will also rotate. That will rotate with the -101 or approximately -1. if I give 100 RPM as an input to the arm, I'm taking output from one of the sun gear, that will be in the minus direction, clockwise 1. Then what is the gear ratio? It will be 1:100. Look at here, the fourth gear rotates at plus 99.9 or approximately plus 1. So you are giving an anti-clockwise 100. In one sun gear you will get opposite direction, the ratio of 1:100. The other sun gear you will get the same direction, approximately 1 rotation, 1:100. Whereas, what is the gear? If you see the physical gear tooth, if you calculate, it is 1:5. But with 1:5, you can get 1:100. At the same time, you get a reverse direction output also. So this type of gear trains are used in gearboxes, which is called automatic gearbox. So you have, in Western countries, we have most of the cars are fixed with the automatic gearbox. You don't have to change the gears. Okay? So you don't have to change the gears. You have epicyclic gear trains, and whenever the speed ratio is to be adjusted, what will happen is, here the gear 2 is fixed, there will be a brake which will fix the gear 2, then you will get 100 in the forward direction or 100 in the reverse direction. So reverse and forward is possible. Instead, suppose I fix this, and you can take an output with a different gear ratio. So by locking any of this, if you go back, you can lock here this or this or this or this by a brake, hydraulically actuated brake, and lock it and get a different output ratios. So that is the advantage. It is being used extensively in the automatic gearboxes. So you can have a reverse also. Reverse, you don't have to engage, you just put a reverse, then the particular output is taken. Okay, that is this particular intriguing phenomena, where in the same gear set you get 1:100 gear in the positive direction, 1:100 in the reverse direction, but whereas the engaging gear as 1:5, this is called a paradox. So it is called a Ferguson paradox. This particular paradox is called Ferguson paradox. Okay. But there is one disadvantage of this epicyclic gear train. Well, let me put it where exactly it is creeping in. With epicyclic gear, you can see in starting motors where high speed reduction ratios can be achieved. Small starting motors of two-wheelers, you have gear gates where epicyclic gear trains are there. Automatic gearboxes, you can see the epicyclic gear trains. There is another place where it is getting in, is in the cycles. You can see some people are owning a geared cycles. Geared cycles, you have chain drive, number of sprockets are there. So by shifting the gear means the chain will be shifted from one sprocket set to the other set. That is a little complicated design. In the world, I think the most leading manufacturer, maybe 2 or 3 manufacturers maximum, but one of the leading manufacturers is Shimano, Japan. So if you go and see that, if you look at the name who has manufactured the geared cycle, that is especially that shifting gear arrangement, it is Shimano. The Shimano has come out with a new design where instead of those complicated sprockets, they achieve this multiple gear output using epicyclic gear trains now. These epicyclic gear trains, the entire train is built in the hub itself. So no external multiple sprockets. There are companies which come out with, direct shaft drive. So you can see some cycles without any chain sprocket. So you just have a pedal. From the pedal there will be a bevel gear and a shaft will take that output to the end and there will be epicyclic thing. Okay? So you will have this shaft will go through a small tube which is connecting the back. So from there is a tube, through the tube they will send it. So you will not see the shaft outside. So such gear things are now being, developed and promoted. So you have this arrangement like epicyclic gears are being used extensively. As people develop and overcome the difficulties, you can get this. But one of the problem with the epicyclic gear is when you engage it for a low speed ratios, their efficiency is very, very poor. Okay? So they will generate lot of heat and you cannot operate. That's why you can see that automatic gearbox cars are, they are poor in mileage. They don't give much mileage. So what is the solution for this? So you want to have an automatic gear shift, that is, I don't want to shift the gear, but I don't want to compromise on the efficiency. I want to have the same mileage. So there you have a new introduction of gearboxes called AMT, automated manual transmission. This is the manual transmission gearbox, is the normal gearbox, but it is automated. The shifting is automated. So now it is there in Tata Nano, it is there in Kwid. You have Renault. So they introduced a model called Kwid. So there is no gear shift arrangement, there is only dial. So you just turn the dial, the shifting is done automatically by the hydraulic means. So when to shift, that will be decided by your engine control unit, then it will shift. So no compromise on the mileage, but still you have the convenience of automatic this thing. So this is an epicyclic gearbox, as you see, and one of the places where exactly this epicyclic gear, the thing is a differential of an automobile. Automobile differential, they have an epicyclic gear train. Now this is, just to show how complicated a gear box would be. So by engaging different set of gears, then you can get different speed. So it shows the power flow at that instant. It comes here, comes through this. And you have to disengage and engage gears when they are rotating. This is in rotation. At that time you have to engage. So it is never done like that. What they do is, they will be always in mesh. So these gears are always in mesh. But there is a clutch which decides from where the power is taken. Okay, that you can see the gearboxes available in the automobile lab for, how they effectively use the synchro mesh for engaging different gears even though all the gears are rotating. This is your so-called automatic gearbox. Okay, so the automatic gearbox, before shifting the gears, this is the torque converter, like replacing your clutch. Then it is a pretty, you have a epicyclic gear set and you have a clutches to change the speeds. Okay, that is just to show what is what, that's all. So here you can see that kind of a belts B1, B2 can apply variable torque so that they can rotate at different speeds to get the output. So this is about differential. Again you can see the differential in action in the automobile lab. So I think we will close this. So I think I'll take one more class, that is tomorrow morning, to give some introduction of the various terms connected with cams. Okay, so with that I think we will close it. So I have not covered certain portions here about the gears. There are certain terms called undercutting, interference, then you have angle of contact and all these things. So that I will try to do justice in the next semester when we are doing. Okay, so it may take maximum of 1 hour. I'll do